Good morning and welcome to Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. My name is Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols, and I will be your host. So happy Thursday Eve or Friday Eve. There we go. Happy Friday Eve to everyone out there. Happy Thursday. The week has gone very fast after the holidays. And Patty Cake says, Grand Rising founder, Grand Rising to you too. Thank you so much for joining us on the YouTube platform, and to everybody out there that is listening, following, and thank you to all the subscribers that I now have on YouTube. I think it's over 110. I think it's up to about 119. And a lot of people might kind of laugh like, that's not a lot of people. That's a lot of people when you grew from zero. I'm just saying. It is a lot of people, and I appreciate every single subscriber that has taken the time again to subscribe to the channel. So with that, let's get into our kids corner for this morning.
Shiny toys, cool clothes, and a big house. But one day he learned that being liked isn't about what you wear, it's about who you are. Not even with the coolest lunchbox and snacks, Divvy sat alone. He wondered why. No one wanted to sit with the richest kid in class. One morning, Zivy saw a boy named Timo helping a girl who dropped her books. No fancy shoes, just kindness. That moment changed everything. Zivy brought his newest robot to school, hoping to impress. Timo didn't care about toys. He cared about stories and sharing snacks. Zivy told Timo about feeling lonely even with all his stuff. Timo listened, and that felt better than any toy ever did. One afternoon, Zivy laughed, not because of a toy, but because he felt seen. That day, he stopped chasing approval and started being himself. Zivy learned that being rich isn't about money. It's about kindness, friendship, and being true to yourself. That's the kind of rich that lasts forever.
Yeah. And a lot of us, again, even as adults, we go through this, being seen. And at the end of it, we do need to remember to just be ourselves, you know, because, I always say this, I'm not for everybody. I am really not. Everyone, but for the people that do, I should say, get me, those are the best people that I have because they get me. And it's okay for the people that don't. Everybody's not supposed to get who you are, but always remember to be your authentic self, you know, being, I should say, the best person that you can be. And that there is wealth in that. And so, with that, we're going to get to honoring God with our body. And so, God, please guard our thoughts in our minds. God, help me to fix my thoughts on what is true and honorable and right and pure and lovely. Oh, sorry. Right and pure and lovely and admirable. So I will think about things that are excellent and worthy of praise. God, please protect my ears and help me to listen to your voice. God, help me to be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. God, please protect my eyes from sin's damage. God, I make a covenant with my eyes not to look lustfully. God, please protect my mouth and help me to speak life. God, set a guard over my mouth. Lord, keep watch over the doors of my lips. God, help my hands to serve generously. God, help me to do good to everyone and especially to those who belong to our family in the faith. God, please help look over my reproductive organs and help me to honor you with my body. God, help me to honor you with my body. God, please help me to walk in your path. God, let your word be a lamp for my feet and a light on my path. And so that is something that, again, I just want it to be our focus every day, that we need to make sure that we're honoring God with our body, and it's our whole body. I know sometimes when people think about the body, they don't think about their lips and their mouth, right? They don't think about the words that they say. They don't think about where their feet should be going or what their hands should be doing. So those are the things that I want to make sure that we are focused on. Now, we're going to get into it. I know there's been a lot of follow-up on what's been happening in Minnesota, especially, right, with the fraud, and there's a lot going on. But I always, I was thinking about it, right before I came on the broadcast. What I try to do is I try to make sure that we're following, right, what's going on out there, but also bigger picture, right? Why are we so focused on this right now? We could be focused on anything else, but we're not. Why aren't we? Right. And so, one of the biggest things that everybody was crying about just a few weeks ago before the Thanksgiving holiday was the Epstein files. Sorry to bring up the sore spot, but everybody was. Now we're over here to the Somali thing. Now it's just like the biggest thing taking over. But I want to, I will be showing some videos from Fox News, but they bring up a good point of who's covering what and who's not covering certain things that are going on right now. So it's very telling when news outlets are covering something or not, and also how long this has actually been out there, and how, in my opinion, Fox News, they were talking about it, but they hadn't been hammering it. So, I mean, as much as they want to kind of throw shade, it's like, don't throw shade if you don't, if you can't come with the receipts that you were actually, doing the coverage as well. So let's get into the first video.
Says he's open to the Treasury Department's investigation after millions of taxpayer dollars reportedly made its way to a terrorist group in Somalia.
When the President of the United States sets up and tweets 150 times after midnight and targets certain people, it's not a coincidence that they're targeting Minnesota. If they want to help us, I welcome that. I think they do an investigation, find out, but I don't think anybody in here really believes their motive and their timing is about actually doing something about this.
The failed VP candidate is questioning the Trump administration's movements, but members of Congress say this is all about protecting Americans and their money. The House Oversight Committee, which is also investigating, says Walz was warned about massive fraud in a pandemic food aid program for children, yet failed to act. So far, at least 50 people have been convicted in the massive fraud scheme, with nearly 80 others getting charged. Minneapolis leadership claims this is a massive case of government overreach.
Targeting Somali people means that due process will be violated. Mistakes will be made. We need to also be demanding better from an administration who is intent on targeting people and committing so much time, energy, and money to terrorizing certain groups within our community. That's not American.
If there is anything that is, a violation of someone's human rights or civil.
Now I have to pause that. Terrorizing? So people wanting to not have fraudulent things happen, that's now terrorism. Sorry. Sir, like, y'all are under investigation. That's not terrorism. It's very interesting how they keep using words out of context and nobody's calling them on this. It's very crazy to me. Hey, Black Flag, thank you so much for joining us this morning and reposting the stream on X. And he says, great day, Black Americans. Thank you so much for joining us.
Rights, excessive force, or anything like that, they absolutely have a duty to intervene as police officers.
What are they talking about? I mean, that first speaker was Jacob Frey, the mayor. And let me just quote the New York Times. Let's clear this up. This is not some right-wing investigative story targeting Tim Walz. No, New York Times says it's staggering in its scale and brazenness. This story, it's been happening for 5 years, and they wasted up to $1 billion, this is New York Times, in taxpayer money. That is more than Minnesota spends annually to run its Department of Corrections. That's the New York Times. Tell that to Jacob Frey.
Look, they're lying to you. In short, since 2019, primarily when Tim Walz became governor, to now, Minnesota's government has become a pseudo-criminal run enterprise. Another set of numbers that matter: from 2019 to 2023, Minnesota's SNAP payments, $509 million in 2019, 174% rise from 2019 to 20. 2019 to 20, and 1.5 billion plus in 2023. What happened in Minnesota that required that much of an increase in outbound SNAP money alone from that program? The fact is, they didn't choose to ignore. They simply closed their eyes to the waste, the fraud. A restaurant owner should not be stealing $250,000 in COVID funds, in one example, millions of dollars. Now we have the outbound money going to Al-Shabaab, going through the NGOs, going through these. When you're stealing money from children, Tim Walz, which is what your administration let happen, and it's going overseas to terrorists, don't blame Donald Trump.
Yep. There's something I'm quite confused about. 2022 is when Merrick Garland started charging in this case, 2022. That's a lot of years ago. But yet the media somehow didn't discover the story. And then we find, I'm going to answer my own question. Let's look at this. Now that this has been covered by the New York Times, 0 minutes of coverage on ABC, 0 minutes CBS, less than 1 minute NBC. Harris, this has been going on since 2022. Where is the investigative journal?
And this is very telling. Extremely telling. Because I'm like, this should not be partisan, right? This should be a matter of, hey, this has been going on. Why aren't you guys on this? Why aren't you talking about it? Why aren't you informing the individuals that watch your outlets, right? There are some people, they don't want to watch Fox News, but that doesn't mean they shouldn't have information. I mean, this is something that needs to be exposed. Okay? It's happening. And I'm not saying it's not happening other places, because trust me, there's a lot of crime that goes on in the United States. White collar crime is huge. Okay. We even found that out with like the whole Bitcoin thing a couple of years ago, but unfortunately it still came around to Democrats because the money that was grifted through it was some type of cryptocurrency. A lot of those individuals, and they were high profile individuals in the Democratic Party, they were getting donations from that monies that were stolen from other people, from their investments. Okay. His name escapes me, but he was a gentleman, Bernie Madoff. Yeah, he had a Ponzi scheme that was going on for decades. And it collapsed finally when he wasn't able to pay people anymore because he was also spending the money that he brought in. People really thought that they were buying investments and shares and everything, and nothing was happening. He was just literally getting money from people and recirculating it, and it all fell apart. Yeah. So I'm not saying that there aren't things out there like that going on. There are. And they always happen. And that's why we, hopefully have an FBI and a DOJ to, make sure that we get those kinds of criminals to stop doing that kind of stuff. Right. But what is really harmful right now that's happening is these are programs that are supposed to help people in need. And we've had one isolated community that has taken advantage of the system. I think that's where people are kind of, I don't want to say it's not so much shocked, but they're like, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this when we actually welcomed you into our country? We not only did that, we decided to take care of you, and actually we are propping you up, right? We're propping you up with our welfare system, because a lot of these individuals, they're on welfare for anywhere from 8 to 10 years after they come here. So this has been since the 90s. They've been doing this. Okay. 8 to 10 years, and you can't get off welfare. Why are you even here? Like, you shouldn't even be coming over here. If you're not educated, if you're not going to contribute to the system, you shouldn't even be coming here to get on welfare, but you cry refugee. And that's why I'm glad that Donald Trump has shut it down to 19 other countries. So you're not the only one being targeted. You're the one mainly being talked about because of the fraud that's happened. So we'll get more into, the Somalis and their hurt feelings behind this. But, you need to talk to your people and say, we shouldn't be committing crimes here in a country that has actually helped us, not harmed us. Okay. Maybe we should talk about that. And Minnesota Fats and Only Facts, thank you so much for joining me this morning from X and reposting the stream.
For ABC News for years in the Twin Cities, and the start of that was really the start of when we would see East African nations like Somalia coming over. And they had very good social programs in Minnesota. And so that was a magnet for them. And they came, and many were beautiful families. But what came with them were all of those connections that the Islamic State had, both outside our country and tied to some of those East African nations, and inside with al-Shabaab, that militant group that's on our soil. So you saw a lot of recruitment, and Minnesota had a problem with this, and they knew that they did. 2007, 2010, they knew that it was growing. They didn't call it. They didn't. And so as it began to grow, those young, mostly men, were picked up, at least a dozen of them that we know of, maybe more. And those trials began by ISIS. It became a problem there. So if they were willing to ignore the veins of radicalization and terrorism in the state of Minnesota, why should we be surprised that they would ignore $1 billion+?
You know what else they ignored, Harris? The Somali gangs. So it's not just about al-Shabaab. The Somali gangs in Minnesota that prey on their very own community that Ilhan Omar ignores. I have police officer sources there that have been telling me this for years.
They're a voting base. You know, Kaylee, and I remember, because I was at the White House during this time, during COVID, and there were so many questions that came to me about the Paycheck Protection Program, which was there to support small businesses, to keep American citizens on payroll. And there was so much criticism of that, just to keep people working, keep American citizens getting paid. All the while, the press was totally turning a blind eye to this.
Yeah, and the reason why a thorough investigation into this scandal is so important is because it's really a perfect case study of the many failures of progressive governance. You had mass migration without any assimilation at all. You had racialized politics that pressured people not to say anything about the lack of assimilation. Then you had bureaucratic mismanagement of taxpayer funds, and then the total drive of any real accountability from the people who mismanaged those funds in the first place. You don't see any sort of apology from Tim Walz. Hey, Minnesotans, I'm sorry for wasting $1 billion by letting the Somali community do this. That is a major scandal. And, you know, it's not just Minnesota. And I will just say really quickly, to your point that this had been known for years, there's a group of state employees in Minnesota who said that they flagged this for Kamala Harris's campaign in the DNC when she tapped Tim Walz. And they said nothing about it. And there's a reason why Brooke Rollins yesterday in the cabinet meeting said that she's going after other blue states who are refusing to turn over SNAP data. It is because this is not just a Minnesota problem. This is a California problem. This is a New York problem. Our taxpayer funds are being exploited and abused, and we need to get to the bottom of it.
And, you know, at the heart of each of those states, Cheryl, is I was shocked to read this in the New York Times. The episode has raised broader questions for some residents about the sustainability of Minnesota's Scandinavian-modeled system of robust safety net programs sustained by high taxes.
No.
Yeah. Bingo.
You want to bankrupt the city of Minneapolis? You know, go right ahead. But look, this is the tip of the iceberg, guys, on this investigation. I have a well-placed source that told me that the fraud is everywhere. It does point back to the Somali community, to be clear here, because of the al-Shabaab connections. But we're talking about Michigan. It's happening up in Canada. The same fraud schemes are going on in Canada. To your point about the Minnesota Department of Human Service employees, yes, they warned the Harris campaign, but they also warned Tim Walz specifically, and they were gaslit. They were ignored. They've been very vocal about it. And I don't know. Thank you, the New York Times, for finally catching up to what everybody else already knows. But to your point about the politics, you know, Walz is running for governor again.
That's right.
So he has every reason to get in front of the cameras right now and decry all of this. Right. Because he needs the money. If you don't have the Somali community, as you know, Harris, if you don't have them behind you, you don't get elected.
You can't win in the Twin Cities. You can't win the state. And look, Senator Tom Emmer, Republican running up there, yeah, he's got plenty to say right now. So Walz had better speak up. Otherwise, he won't be in that race.
Oh, to be a Democrat, you can take taxpayer money intended for children, get it to terrorist groups unwittingly, and then have an aiding and abetting press corps. Like, wow, that's how this country works.
Hey, everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me.
Very scary. Very, very scary. I'm like, whoa. So people aren't covering this, and my goodness, you guys. But the interesting thing that they said at the end, if you do not have the Somali vote, you're not going to win the governor's seat? So you mean here in America, in one of our 50 states, is dependent upon a completely different ethnic group? They're not even, you know, native to our soil, and they're determining elections? See, that says a lot about the capitulation of Americans and politicians here in America. But again, this is a part of the replacement migration theory. Do we not think it's going on? Are we just going to sit around and go, oh, no, that's not happening? That's, conspiracy theory. No, it's not. They literally sat there and said, if you do not have the Somali vote, it will be difficult for you to become governor in an American state. That's disgusting. I need these people up off the soil yesterday. Get out of this country. Get out of this country. And Dr. C says, I knew it was happening elsewhere too. Yeah. And that's the thing. Like they were saying, nobody's covering this. And Uncle Coolwater says, what is the percentage of Somalians in Minnesota? How many of them is it really? And good morning. Good morning to you too. I know we're just getting right into the conversation. I think I did this a couple weeks back. I will have to see and check. But because I remember I wanted to know like about the Somali community, and I think I was looking at more so of who in the Somali community was on receiving aid, right? And I wanted to look at their economic contributions. Yeah, because I was looking at the fraud screen, and that was like right during the Thanksgiving holiday. So like around the 24th is when I, kind of really jumped on it and said, okay, something's going on. This is kind of an issue, right? This is kind of an issue. But yeah, it kind of broke out, and it says, let me share my screen here really quick and get on to these next videos. And Dr. C, she's so cute. She says, yes, greetings, founder. Greetings to you too. I know we just get into it on the show. And Patty Cake says, the population is so large in Minnesota that their state flag is now Somalian. Yeah, they did that too, guys. Like, this is gross. Like, I need Minnesota. Look, y'all need to turn this around. I don't know how many other people are living there, but when you have so many people there that they're determining, who gets elected in our major offices, right? Like the governorship and this fraud and stuff going on, it's just not working out. It's just not working out. So here's the population. So, and this is as of 2020, right? So we're like 2025. So I guess 2030. Yeah, that'll be the next time we do our census because we do that every 10 years. So the population is anywhere from 170 to 250,000 Somali-born plus U.S.-born children, right? Largest cluster, Minneapolis, St. Paul metro, which is anywhere from 80 to 100,000, right? So they're in Minnesota, but they're not necessarily all in Minneapolis, but there is a large portion of them in Minneapolis. So I hope that answers your question, Uncle Coolwater. But yeah, and 50 to 60% of them live below the poverty line. Okay, so their median incomes are anywhere from 25 to 35,000. If that's the case, they're mostly majority on welfare. That's why they're on welfare. But here's the thing, during COVID, and there was a lot of money floating around. That's when you see the majority of the crime going on because they really thought they were going to be able to hide it. And that's just my opinion, allegedly. I think that was when they were going in there, but I've got another timeline also to look at. And Dr. C says immigrants shouldn't be in political offices. They shouldn't be. They shouldn't be sheriffs. They shouldn't be anything. But, they're doing this, right? Because again, it's replacement market migration. Like a lot of what's happening is not an accident. That's what I need us to realize. This is on purpose. Okay, this is not an accident. This isn't just happenstance, like, oh my gosh, we just tripped and fell over all these people. No, this started happening in the 90s when they were brought here. There was already remittance fraud in the 90s, just a few years after they got here. Okay, so this is not a community that is just like so upstanding and all these things. They're not. And I'm not going to sit here and act like, oh, we need to feel sorry for them. No, I don't feel sorry for any refugees that come here because your country was falling apart and we had mercy on you. I'm never going to feel sorry for you. Now, I can be compassionate and I can mercy, but I'm not going to feel sorry for you. God doesn't even feel sorry for you. He doesn't. He has compassion. He has mercy. Doesn't feel sorry for you. Okay. As human beings, we all have the ability to, pick ourselves up by the bootstraps, as everybody likes to say. But nobody's telling that to the Somali community. And how dare you ever, ever, I don't want to ever hear anybody say about an American Negro that we are welfare queens. When you have over 50% of these people in one state in particular on welfare, they're not Black. They have melanated skin. They are Somali. And I am putting them in their box. Okay? Because that's where they love. Yeah, they love Somalia as long as they're not there. Okay? And people are going to be deported in mass. And they think, well, we're Americans. No, 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 no. You're naturalized. And you can be denaturalized based on how you've been moving within the United States against the United States. And don't think that the people that took the money, see, there was the people that made the crime happen, but then there were the other people that were complacent and took the money. I was actually watching a video earlier, and I didn't get this clip, but there was a gentleman. He works in the Minnesota area, Black American, or I should say American Negro. And he was like, I noticed when I was going to a lot of these homes, right, that there were new cars in front of homes where there were HUD homes. And I know there were HUD homes because, when I, get my, duties and people call in, I know that they're HUD homes, but they were predominantly Somali descent. Okay. And they predominantly had brand new cars. How do you have a brand new car and you're on HUD? Yeah. Yeah. They've been defrauding the government in order to prop up their community. Plain and simple, short and sweet. And it needs to stop. So here's a timeline of the scandal to get into it quickly. So in 2009, there were early vulnerabilities identified. A state report flags risk in the federal child care assistance program, setting the stage for later exploitation. No major actions taken. So somebody came up and, in Minnesota and said, hey, we've got loopholes here, basically, where people can get things that they're not supposed to have. Are we going to do anything? Nobody did anything. Now, that was in 2009. Now, we fast forward to 2020, their fraud schemes proliferate. Okay. During the pandemic, like I said, during the pandemic, it was wild and everybody knows it. Everybody in this chat, y'all know. So loose federal rules on child nutrition and social services enable fake nonprofits to bill millions for unprovided meals and care. Feeding Our Future alone siphoned $250 million. Warnings from DHS employees to Governor Tim Walz's administration are allegedly ignored. So people were telling Tim Walz, like, look, there's something wrong here. You need to look into us. Nothing. Right? And Uncle Kawada say either the white community is on the Somali unethical practices or the white people are not getting out to vote. There's no way Somalians should be determining who gets in any office. Maybe in the region needs more research. Oh, absolutely. Like they got the mayor, the white dude. And I saw this video and I might have to bring it up tomorrow. He's speaking in Somali language. He's speaking in their dialect. At last I checked, we are in America. And the language is English. I think Donald Trump earlier this year, he made an edict through his executive order. We are an English speaking country and the language is English. Everything in English. Why are you speaking it to these people in their native tongue? They're in America. Now, if you want to go to Somalia and do that, that's fine, but you're on American soil, not ever. I mean, these people are capitulating to the nth degree. Like, what do they have on the European people in Minnesota? Like, they need to do a deep dive on this one because I'm telling you, it's crazy. Now we fast forward to January 20th, 2022. Federal raids launch major probe. So this has been going on for a while. FBI and IRS raid 20 locations in Minneapolis tied to Feeding Our Future. Initial charges against 5 defendants. Media coverage begins locally in Minnesota public radio. So the major outlets like ABC, NBC, CBS, even, Fox News, they weren't talking about this. Huh? They weren't on it like this. Okay. So March 2023, the first major convictions, early guilty pleas in Feeding Our Future. One defendant sentenced to 17.5 years. Did you guys hear about somebody getting 17 years for this? No. National outlets at NPR cover it as one of the largest COVID fraud cases. Nobody was talking about this. Now, in December of 2023, now this is 2 years ago, this is still under the Biden administration, largest Medicaid fraud charges. Minnesota AG Keith Ellison indicts 3 individuals for $11 million in Medicaid theft via fake home care billing, the biggest such case in state history. Now, recently, this is the one that the judge overturned. This is that case. And the AG is going back to appeal it. They clearly stole the money because they basically said, hey, we're providing these services. And then when they found out they didn't provide the services, that's fraud. Cut and dry. Fraud. And the judge was like, there's not enough circumstantial evidence. What do these people have on you that you are capitulating like this? It's crazy. June 2024, right? Still last year, still under the Biden administration right here. Now, notice the timeline. So 2009, the vulnerabilities, 2020, 2021. So Biden got elected in 2020. This whole Feeding Our Future thing happened probably as Trump was on his way out. And there were warnings from DHS to Governor Tim Walz then. Then Biden gets in office and nothing. You got to remember, nothing else happened. Okay. All right. So we get to June 2024, 5 more charged in related schemes totaling 10 plus million in overbilling and kickbacks. Now, this one, I want to say this one refers to like the whole autism thing that was going on. They started charging more. September 2025, we get to this year. Housing fraud indictments. I mean, it just goes on and on. 8 defendants charged in a $2.7 million scheme defrauding the Housing Stabilization Services Program. They call it HSS. Yeah. So people that needed the assistance weren't getting it, but it was going back to the Somali community. See, that's the thing that people don't understand. All this money that was being stolen, it wasn't just like not going anywhere. It was going back into the Somali community. And then some of those remittances were going over to Somalia to support some terrorist activity because Al-Shabaab takes that money off the top. What? And we're just supposed to sit back and be like, oh, well, we're sorry. No, we're not sorry. We're not sorry. We want you off the soil. There needs to be a whole mass campaign on all social media. If you don't get these Somalis up out of here and everybody else up out of here, we are tired of paying for everybody else's lunch as the American people. We're tired. Okay. I get it. We are supposed to be, generous and gracious and helpful, but it has been taken advantage of, and the American people are over it. Now, March of this year, I don't know why it's so out of order. Usually it's done in order. Feeding Our Future, a nonprofit founder, Amy Bach, and a restaurant owner, she was convicted of $250 million fraud. NPR and local outlets reported as a shame of Minnesota over 50 guilty pleas now. So that was in March. Now she's Caucasian, okay, and she was a part of it. So she knew what was going on. She wasn't dumb. Now, in November, there are terrorist links, allegedly, and national escalation. Federal investigators warned some funds reached Al Shabaab. City Journal publishes expose. The largest funder of Al Shabaab is the Minnesota taxpayer. Trump posts on Truth Social calling Minnesota a hub of fraudulent money laundering, revokes TPS for Somalis. DHS employees accuse Walz of retaliating against whistleblowers. Now we're here. We're in December now. Somalis against Pan-Africanism. Okay, and you're saying all of these programs created post George Floyd went to Somalians. And here's my thing. I know that a lot of people that are refugees, when they come here, they do get assistance so they can, get their lives back together. But when you start using it as a lifestyle, but then you don't only do that, you start using it in nefarious ways. Now, they might not have seen it that way. They might have seen it, well, our people are poor anyway. Let's take some of this money and make sure that our people benefit from it, right? There's a way to do that without doing what you did. You committed fraud doing it the way you've done it. But there's a way, Feeding Our Future, yeah, feed your community with that money because that's what you're supposed to be doing. But you didn't do that. You build as if you gave money to, food to all these people, and that didn't happen. You actually had the opportunity to build up your community and say, look at the good that we're doing with what's been given to us. And you didn't do that. Okay? Maybe that's not who y'all are. And that's sad. And that's truly, truly sad. And you're saying look up corruption perceptions index, and Somalia is ranked at the most corrupt nation. Ooh, that's sad and crazy. And loans, home ownership, and things like car is given to Somalians under their refugee status. Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Thanks for letting me know. And Uncle Coolwater says they are using the system and doing under the table businesses that they don't have to report so they can stay on the system. These people are thieves. And it's sad because, there are a lot of communities that I think do that, right? In smaller ways. They just took it to the next level. They were just like, just out there with it, right? So the New York Times investigation ignites outrage. So how fraud swamped Minnesota's social services system on Tim Walz's watch. Now, this was at the end of November, which is basically a few days ago. We're not even a week away. Details the $1 billion plus losses over 5 years. $1 billion in 5 years? Like, that's just wild. Coverage explodes. Walz defends on NBC's Meet the Press 78th defendant charged. So at this point, they've got 78 people that have been charged. By December 1st, new charges and political fallout. Tony Robinson indicted for $1 million plus grant fraud. House Oversight Chair James Comer, we're going to watch a video with him, launches a probe into Walz's handling, demanding documents by December 17th. Fox News reports DHS employees warned DNC about Walz in 2024. So there were warnings about this person and nothing's been done. It's crazy. Now, the media bias claims community backlash. Fox News notes ABC, NBC, CBS, Evening News skipped Walz's role. Trump calls Somali immigrants garbage amid feud with Representative Ilhan Omar and Walz. Somali leaders brace for ICE crackdowns. It's on December 3rd. Treasury probe confirmed. Secretary Scott Bessent announces investigation into al-Shabaab links. House Budget Chair Jody Arrington blasts Walz. PBS and ABC cover Somali community response. Interesting. They covered the response of the Somali community, but they're not covering any of the fraud investigation going on. Again, what is going on? What is really going on? And continued scrutiny. Discussions intensify. Polls show 56% of Minnesotans believe Walz hasn't done enough. Federal probes expand to SBA-linked networks. Now, it is a Democratic-run state. Hate to go back to it, but yeah, y'all's party is wild. Wild. And it's sad because people really, they want to do things right. They want to, be associated with a party that's doing good, right? That's actually benefiting other people. And a lot of people gravitate towards the Democratic Party because they're like, well, they're not racist like the Republican Party. At least over here, there's a diverse group of people that, are, connecting. And both parties are associated with fraud and crime. So don't get me wrong. I'm not absolving the Republican Party, but I'm just telling you why a lot of people do gravitate towards the Democratic Party, because they truly do believe that it is a better party than the Republican Party, even though you get situations like this where all this major economic fraud is going on the basically the programs that the Democratic Party is always supporting and propping up. The Democratic Party used the welfare system to bring in millions of people over these past 5 years. They didn't bring them in because they were working and because they were business owners and because they were going to actually make jobs for the American people to build up our economy. They brought over millions of people so they would have a new voting bloc and basically flood the system. Why are people so bent on wanting to destroy America? It's really weird to me. Because you sit up here entitled, but yet you want to burn the house down. It's very odd. It's very odd. So let's get into our next video, and this is James Comer.
Below the surface, so let's bring in the chairman of the House Oversight Committee, James Comer, for more on this. Mr. Chairman, good to talk to you, and thanks for taking the time today. I just want to put up on the screen here some facts and figures so folks at home can truly understand the depth of the fraud here. This was in the Minnesota.
Okay, guys. So from 2021, 21 million. Okay. Now this is the HSS program. This is that housing program that I was just sharing with you guys about shortly. It's supposed to be $2.6 million annually. So under $3 million annually. In 2021, it was $21 million. 22, 42 million. 23, 74 million. It was at over 100 million by 2024. So within that 4-year span, what? And the first half of 2025, it's at 61 million. What is going on in Minnesota? Like, what is going on?
Housing stabilization program. The predicted cost was $2.6 million annually. You can see the actual costs there eclipsed by at least 10 times, closing in on 50 times. First half of 2025, they spent $61 million on other examples of alleged fraud. Feeding Our Future program, $250 million. Autism treatment, $14 million. Medicaid, $18.5 million for services that were never provided. And allegations, Mr. Chairman, that Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, either turned a blind eye to this or actually empowered people to do this through political correctness. What do you want to know?
Well, first of all, what you're going to see is the fraud entailed a whole menu of government programs, social programs, and that's kind of the mojo for the Democrat Party now. They want to put more and more money into social programs, but yet they refuse to accept responsibility for any type of waste, fraud, and abuse. What we know is the state employees in Minnesota rang the bell, they blew the whistle that there was massive fraud, and yet Tim Walz and Keith Ellison, the Attorney General, apparently turned a blind eye to that for fear of political retaliation from the large voting bloc of Somalis.
Yeah, well, you just pointed that out, what the employees of the state were saying. This is from the Minnesota Department of Human Service employees. They posted this on X Saturday. They said, quote, Tim Walz is 100% responsible for massive fraud in Minnesota. We let Tim Walz know of fraud early on, hoping for a partnership in stopping fraud, but no, we got the opposite response. As staff, we firsthand witnessed and observed fraud happening, yet we were shut down, reassigned, and told to keep quiet, sometimes more. There are even allegations, Mr. Chairman, of retaliation against whistleblowers here.
Well, sure, what it sounds like. If you disregard someone and reassign them to another position, that's retaliation. And, you know, Democrats used to say they protected the state and federal employees who worked for the government. But what we found is anytime you blow the whistle against the Democrat, you face retaliation. That's wrong. But the whole fraud scheme is wrong. And we want to bring those state employees in. We want to talk to them. We want to see all the correspondence that was had between the state agencies and the governor and the attorney general to see why they did not do anything at that particular moment. Such a disregard for taxpayer dollars is criminal in itself. But to do it for political gain, that's even worse. Hopefully, we can set an example and hold people accountable for this type of negligent abuse of tax dollars, because I think this is not just a Minnesota thing. I think you're going to see this in other blue states that all they talk about, these Democrat governors, is more and more social programs, more and more SNAP benefits, more and more Medicaid, but yet they refuse to admit that there's any level of fraud. So hopefully this is the tip of the iceberg, and I think this investigation could lead to many more investigations in other states and hopefully finally some savings of taxpayer dollars.
Yeah, you would think, you know, if they're doing it in Minnesota, that's not the only place where it's happening. For his part, here's what Governor Walz said, defending his actions or lack thereof. Listen here.
My message is simple on this. You commit fraud in Minnesota, you're going to prison. I don't care what color you are, what religion you are. Anybody who wants to help us in that, we welcome that. But setting on the sidelines and throwing out accusations, and let's be very clear, demonizing an entire population and lying to people about the safety and security of this state is beneath that.
Just got a few seconds left, Mr. Chairman. Your response to that? I mean, this is happening right under his nose.
He's trying to play the race card here. He's trying to play the discrimination card. No, the problem is Tim Walz. The problem is he was warned of this massive amount of fraud, and yet he turned a blind eye for political reasons. That's why he turned a blind eye. So we want to stop this from happening, obviously, but we want to find and hold people accountable for allowing this to happen and see if this is being replicated in other states.
All right. Well, we look forward to the results of your investigation. Thank you for spending time with us today, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Okay. And Uncle Coolwater says the Democrat Party is the party of unethical lifestyle, and a lot of them probably practice unethical things. The blue do what you want to do party. And I know he kind of said that because a lot of people say blue no matter who. You know, that's just how they vote. And he says, but the leadership of America is some kind of stupid too, right? They are the ones who invited all their enemies onto their soil. So what do you expect is going to happen when people come here with a revenge mentality and you let them through the back door? Absolutely. I was actually listening to Sonny Johnson over the weekend, and she was saying pretty much just that. You invited these people here. You invited them. They didn't just come here illegally and just somehow no, you invited them here. You knew who they were. You knew what they were about. You knew they were not going to assimilate. So the bigger question becomes, why did you even bring them here in the first place? Now we have to take this back to the 80s and 90s, because there was a point before 1965 where we had a moratorium on our borders, where we didn't have anybody coming over here. Okay. But you have to take it back to the Rockefeller Foundation, right? You have to take it back to this socialist mentality. And we're going to get into that a little bit after we take a short break. But yeah, this is what's happening. They have invited the enemy in here and then wonder why things are happening. It's really crazy. So let's get into this short video. And this is one of the leaders in Minnesota. I almost said Somalia. Lord. He is Somalian, okay? But he is one of the leaders in their community.
Is racist, xenophobic, Islamophobic, and we are going to fight that.
It's not racist to fight crime and fraud. It's righteous. Omar thinks Trump has a crush on her.
I would say the president's obsession with me and the Somali community is really unhealthy. It's creepy. And I hope that he gets the help that he needs.
Now, I always find it fascinating because, Mayor Brandon Johnson, he does that a lot too. He'll turn it around and be like, "Are you okay? Are you mentally well?" Instead of answering the question, he'll literally turn it on the reporter he's talking to. And he does this a lot. And he makes it seem like they have a mental issue when he's responding to them. And now I see Representative Omar trying to do the same thing. No, our president, he's 79. And he stuck it to you. He called you garbage. And he called your people garbage. And he said, you need to get up off the soil because you're not benefiting anybody here. He's not obsessed with you. He wants you off the soil. So he no longer has to discuss you. And a lot of us we're with that. But to say that he's racist and xenophobic, and they want to use all these phobias, Islamophobic. Nobody's talking about your religion, sir. You brought that up. It's not xenophobic either. And he's not a racist when it comes to talking about your community. Okay, he is talking about a specific block of people. Because, like I've always said, racism is something that you have to do in order to be a racist. You got to be involved in an act of racism. But people use it today to demonize other people and to kind of shut conversation down. And so that was something that I wanted to really talk about with you guys today, because I was like, come on. And Spud, oh, good morning, Spud. He says, good morning. Wasn't a coincidence Tim was chosen, right, as running mate with not going to do something for only Black people? No, we know what you're talking about. You're hilarious. They turn into mental health evaluators, which is so crazy, right? But again, I wanted to go to I wanted to share this with you guys really quickly, because I was like, define racism, xenophobia, Islamophobia, because to me, the people, they use this when they want to shut down conversation. They just want to shut the discussion down. So I'm just going to call you names. I mean, I even had somebody in my chat the other day and they were just calling me all kinds of names and different things. I'm like, you're not going to shut down my conversation. This is my show. Stop. Really? Like, we're not going to do that here. You can say what you want to say. I don't have to read your comments. Right. And even in my comments, they were just like, yeah, I know you're not going to read it. And I was just like, why are you even here? But people would do that. I mean, me being called a racist is like super laughable. because I haven't been involved in any acts of racism. So I know I'm not a racist. And I find it hilarious how, and trust me on this, you're going to see this a lot. Somalis are going to be, well, we're Black people. Nope, you don't get to hide under the American Negro. I'm going to tell you that right now. You're not Black. And this flat Blackness thing, this is very telling right here. Because they're going to start going, well, we're Black people. You need to be sympathetic to us. No, no one does. Because everybody's kind of gotten the race game. They're kind of hip to it. And they're hip to it in the sense where they know that you're trying to use it to make people feel guilty. See, the American Negro, we're not into that. We're into delineating and making sure that we are taking care of our home, which is America. Okay? Right here. We're not trying to take care of people overseas. We're not sending remittances anywhere. We're right here in America. That's not your story. That's not who you are. That's not what your people are doing. You want to benefit from America, and then you want to send it somewhere else. But don't you ever call yourselves Black. And that goes for everybody. That goes for people from Somalia, from Jamaica, from Haiti. Just because you're a melanated, you are not an American Negro. That is not who you are. Stop trying to hide, especially when you've committed fraud under the race card. Nope. You don't get to do that. You don't get to make anybody on this soil feel guilty about what you just did. Sorry, nobody's doing it. Okay. So racism. Now it's interesting because it definitely gives a definition that is more of what we see today, right? And it includes this is grok, prejudice, discrimination, antagonism directed against a person or people on the basis of their membership in a particular racial or ethnic group, typically one that is a minority or historically marginalized, more formally in sociology and law. It is often defined as prejudice plus power, right? Meaning prejudice backed by institutional or systemic power, right? Because I was like, define this for me. Everyday usage, a negative comment, stereotype, joke, policy criticism, or statistical observation about a racial or ethnic group is often labeled racist, even when no malice or belief of racial superiority is present. They'll just say it. Like I've even heard even people in the LGBTQ plus IA, they'll be like, you're a racist. I guess what? We're not even talking about race here. This is about sexuality. Like, what are you talking about? But you just throw it out there. Again, because it's weaponized use. Calling someone racist is one of the most powerful conversation enders in modern discourse. Once the label sticks, the accused is often expected to prove a negative, right? Prove you're not a racist. And further discussion of the original topic is derailed. Just like I said, with the LGBTQIS people, if you were to say to them, like, what are you talking about? I'm not racist. Well, then prove it. You have to say that we're great. I'm just paraphrasing here, but that's like this conversation has nothing to do with race. And that's an example of how it can be weaponized. And Freedman Chief Justice Reparations, thank you so much for reposting the stream and joining us this morning from X. Now, xenophobic, its core definition: fear, hatred, or prejudice against people from other countries or cultures. More broadly, dislike of or prejudice against anything perceived as foreign or not from here. Really? So you created a catch-all. We don't want you here because you act like you don't want to be here. You don't want to be an American. You want to benefit from America, but you don't want to be an American. That's why we want you off the soil. That's not xenophobic. Those are just facts. But you created this catch-all. So it can be like, you're a racist. We are not buying into the word salad. I'm just saying. Now, the weaponized use, the term is frequently deployed to legitimate to dismiss legitimate debates about immigration policy, border control, and cultural preservation as mere irrational fear. Right? In everyday usage, opposition to high levels of immigration, concerns about cultural change, or criticism of specific foreign practices can be labeled xenophobic, even when the concern is about volume, integration speed, crime rates, and cultural compatibility rather than foreigners as people. So, like I said, they created this catch-all. This is xenophobic. I never heard this word until like maybe the early 2000s. And I was like, why are they coming? What is this? What is this? Oh, so the American people, we're just supposed to lay on our belly and let you just walk all over us and not stand up for our country if you don't get up off the soil. See, you've poked the bear. You've poked the bear and you've shown your butt, and we know who you are, and we're done. You're not going to get to cry, well, we're Americans too. No, you're not. No, I know there are Americans that commit crime, like I said, and they're not excused either. Okay? But what you're not going to do is come here and say, I'm from this country and I'm proud of this country and this, that, and the other. And then go to that country and build it up. But don't use our resources to do it. Go to your country and build it up and leave us alone. That's all I'm talking about. And Patty Cake says, founder said the American Negro with her whole chest. Preach, founder. Thank you. And it says they're taking our jobs. That's unfortunate. They're directly cause housing prices hikes and lower wages. Yeah, the immigrants will work for less. They will. And Uncle Coolwater said this is legal. Yeah, and that's the sad part. And here's the thing: we have been very welcoming and generous as a country, but it's been taken advantage of. But we have to ask the bigger question. These people didn't just come here, they were invited here by our leaders. So this goes back to Congress. This goes back to the people in the House, in the Senate, both Republicans and Democrats. If you don't fix this, because we're not going to be fighting each other like the Hunger Games down here. Stop that. Yeah, and our leaders are Jewish. I mean, it's the whole thing. And what I don't really like, and thank you for bringing up the Jewish part, is like I don't like the Israeli guilt. Like there is and I've brought it up before a couple of weeks ago. It's called Show Faith by Works. Hopefully I'm saying that right. And they basically are going on a campaign to teach, basically shove it down Americans' throats in the Western part of the United States about how much you need to love Israel and back Israel and do these things. It's like, you know what? I pray for the people of Israel. I do. I don't like what their government is doing. Their government is doing things that are horrible. Yeah, they are out there committing all kinds of crimes and committing genocide. What are you doing? What is the government of Israel doing? And what are the people of Israel doing about changing their government? Are you complicit in this? Again, that's why I'm praying for the people of Israel, because you guys need to change this. None of this is good, what's going on. And just to expect blind allegiance from Christians is even worse. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. If you are not doing right by God, what are you doing? At the end of the day, we can see your hands. We can see your hands. And Dinah says, amen. Amen. I'm just saying. It's like, come on. We can see what you're doing. Sin is sin. It's real simple. Look, those are one of the easy things in life. Now, Islamophobia, okay, the core definition, it's an unfounded hostility or fear of Islam and Muslims as a religious group. So, Is there Christian phobia? I don't know. Look, I can't even make up that word. If you don't like Christians, you don't like Christians. If people don't like Muslims, they don't like Muslims. But now we have a word for, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're, how is he Islamophobic when he's not even bringing up her religion? Oh, that's right. Because a lot of these individuals, they tie their ethnicity of where they are, right, to their religion of being a Muslim. So where the Somalis come from, they are Sunni Islam. Okay. But because of the interweaving of that theological stance, it is tied into who they are as a people, right? So if you don't care for people that are Somalia, then you're automatically Islamophobic. Even though here we have freedom of religion in this country, and they still use that against us, right? Because it's like, well, you don't want, people practicing Islam. No, we don't want people practicing Sharia law. Okay, which runs contrary to our Constitution. Period. Now, current broad usage, any criticism of Islam doctrine, scripture, historical practices, Sharia law, like I just said, terrorism linked to Islamist ideology, or cultural practices associated with some Muslim majority countries, right? Treatment of women, apostates, or LGBT people is often branded Islamophobic. So what I just said, I was like, we don't want people that practice Sharia law here. People would say I'm Islamophobic for saying that. Even though I'm okay with people practicing Islam, the peaceful form of Islam, but not the jihadi form of Islam. They're two different things. Wow, that is so sad. And Dana was sharing with us that Asia was 9 years old when she was deflowered by the Holy Prophet. That is so sad. Like, what are we doing? Like, that's just gross. That's gross. And I think it's even worse that, yeah, I'm going to criticize you. Look, I'm going to criticize. And I have that right to, because guess what? I'm on American soil. And it's called freedom of speech. And if your feelings get hurt, your feelings get hurt. But now you've come up with terms that you can use against me, like, well, you're this. And look, keep it going. As a Black woman, I don't think there's much more you can do to me as an American Negro. I don't think there is much more. Really? We have been the pebble in people's shoe for centuries. We're kind of used to it. We're over it. It's like, oh, is that all you got? Really? Say something else. But what you're not going to do is come here and defecate on our soil. That's what you're not going to do. I'm just saying. Oh, and Sassy Lady, thank you so much for reposting the stream. And then it says child marriage, grown men marrying 9-year-olds is common in Islam. It is. It's sad. And we aren't even talking about the pedophilia that goes on in Islam as well. Okay. And these are things that I know that are confirmed. So if you guys want, I'll be sharing this link. If you guys want it, let me know. But the summary of the shutdown dynamic you mentioned, yeah, these 3 words, racist, xenophobic, Islamophobic, function today less as precise descriptors and more as rhetorical nuclear weapons. Their power comes from moral stigma, right? Being labeled with any of them can damage reputations, jobs, or social standing. Vagueness, right? The definitions have expanded so much that almost any uncomfortable statement can be squeezed into them. And then it's a one-way application. They are rarely applied symmetrically, right? Ethnic hostility toward white people or Western culture is seldom called racist in mainstream discourse with the same intensity. Right. So as a result, they are extremely effective at ending debates before the substance can be discussed. So, and I said, give me the, oh, good morning to you. Sincerely, Lawless, appreciate you. And Dana also says, thank you for spreading the truth. Hopefully you never get censored. Oh, I will be. And it's okay. I hate to say people consider it a badge of honor, but it's like, you know what? We're all censored in some kind of way, and it's okay. But we have to remember not to self-censor, right? It's that part. And what I mean by that is I don't ever want to be in a situation where I can't speak my mind. I'm always going to be prudent, right? Because I respect God enough to want to be a good steward of what he's given me, right? I'm not just going to say whatever. But I never want to get to the point where I'm overthinking what I'm going to say to the point where I can't say anything. That's the self-censor part that they want a lot of people to get to. And I do pray that nobody ever gets there. And Walter Mason says, morning, family. That Negro checking in. Absolutely brilliant show this morning, family. Oh, I'm not going to say that word. But he says, in a way, F the Democrats. All right, that Negro. We got to be good. Let's see. So I just wanted to get the Webster's definition of racism. And racism is a belief that race is a fundamental determinant of human traits and capabilities, that racial differences produce an inherent superiority of a particular race. And there's another definition: behavior or attitudes that reflect and foster this belief, racial discrimination or prejudice. Another definition: the systemic oppression of a racial group to the social, economical, or political advantage of another, specifically white supremacy, right? And here's another definition: a political or social system founded on racism and designed to execute its principles. Okay, now racist, the person who's executing this, right? As a noun, a person who believes and adheres to or practices racism. Like I've always said, racism is a verb. Racist is the noun. So if you call somebody a racist, what do? You can't just throw this word out without any proof. Now, there used to be a time in history where you called somebody a racist, it was defamatory, because you would have to prove what you were saying. But because a lot of our structure here in the United States, because it's based in race, right? And you did use it to disparage one group over another, you made another group superior to another. I've already brought up the case where it showed this. That's the problem. It has happened in our structure. So now we have a group of individuals from other countries coming over here, and they want to point the finger and say, well, you're being a racist because you're not agreeing with me. That's not what the word even constitutes, right? It doesn't. A racist, a person who believes in, adheres to, or practices racism. You got to practice it, right? You've got to be a part of it. So would I be practicing racism if I outpriced particular individuals, but I gave a break to others? That could be considered racism, right? It could be. It's hard to prove, but it could be. I'm just using that as an example because redlining is real and it happened, right? It even happens still today. A Black person may have pictures of themselves in their house, and their house will sell for less than if somebody believes that a white person lives at the house. Those are facts. It's happened. It's been documented. And Dr. Harriet says Somalians are practicing racism using our identity. Oh, they are, and they need to stop, and we need to call them out on it every single time. I have footage of Representative Ilhan Omar saying, well, I'm a Black woman. No, you are not. You are Somali. And there's well-documented speeches about you, how you're calling yourself a Somalian. And you stand up for Somalia and how you're going to work for Somalia inside the United States government. I'm not being hyperbolic. She has said these things. You are not us. You are not an American Negro. And they need to stop playing the victim, because they're not victims. They're victimizers. They're predators at this point. You're predators. You took advantage of us, and you need to get up off the soil. It's very easy. That does not make me racist. That makes me an American standing up for America, and I do not want people hurting America. That's not being prejudiced. That's not being discriminatory. You hurt our country. You're not assimilating. You need to leave. Plain and simple. It's real easy. Right? And so I'm going to go down. Like I said, I will share this link so you guys can see it. But at the end of it, it says, so yes, reserving racism for actual race-based supremacy or systemic race-based oppression and using ethnic prejudice, cultural incompatibility concerns, discrimination, etc., would make discussions far more honest and less emotionally radioactive. The current inflammatory use of racism hasn't reduced prejudice. It has mainly created a climate where people are afraid to speak plainly. And that's all that is. You know, Ilhan Omar calling the president, he's a racist. You know, at a certain point, he's just going to own it. He's just, can you see Donald Trump sitting up there? I sure am. I am a whole racist. Thank you for reminding me. But on to the next thing. Do you know what I'm saying? Because he's just that kind of person. Like, he would just own it. And everybody be like, oh my God, he says he's a racist. But then it would be like, okay, what acts of racism has he been involved in? Now you got to prove that he's a racist to even justify saying it. At that point, it would be like, okay, you're just name calling to name call. So now we just got to own it. I'm going to own Islamophobia. I'm going to own xenophobia. Just own it. Does it matter? You're using it out of context anyway. Does it matter? That's the thing. They're getting words to just not matter. It's crazy. But anyway, let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to look at Chicago and what's going on there. So thank you so much for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News. And we'll see you on the other side.
At All Sides, we believe unbiased sides. We give bias ratings for hundreds of media outlets. By freeing people from filter bubbles and providing different perspectives, we can all be better equipped to understand the world and each other. So how do we do it?
And welcome back to Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. My name is Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols, and I will be your host. And Dan the man says, how are you? I'm doing well. How are you? Hello. And Walter says, you're right, founder. I apologize, but this is absolutely diabolical. He says, I am literally trying to be less triggered by their anti-American Negro rhetoric. Yeah, because guess what? Again, it's stuff to do to trigger you. So remember when we were kids and we were outside and people were just like, you're stupid, you're dumb. And they would just, people were trying to get a rise out of you. Right. And that's what I look at it as. People just trying to get you emotionally involved in their nonsense. It's like, I'm not doing that. We're not doing that. But what we will have is an intelligent conversation, because what you're not going to do is play victim and cry the race card, because you have no race to hide under. If you are here from another country, you do not get to hide under race. Stop it. Stop it. They don't want to be Black. Somalis do not claim Blackness ever. They can't stand us. Yeah, I might have to bring up some videos. I'm just saying. And Walter says, I absolutely love the American Negro terminology, founder. Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. Get your American Negro money, founder. Look. And we're the only group of people that can claim that. I mean, we're written in legislation in this country. Like, it's amazing. I mean, for all of the hurts that the American Negro has gone through. We're documented. We're here. But what we are not ever going to tolerate is people coming into our home and defecating on our home and telling us how we're nothing. That's what we're not ever going to tolerate. You can go back to your home country, you can build it up. Hey, do your thing. But what you're not going to do is come here and take advantage of us. We're not having it. We are not having it. But now let's move on to Mayor Brandon Johnson. There's some things going on in Chicago, you guys, that we need to be aware of.
Clergy came together to say their neighborhoods have been disproportionately hit hard. The assessor's office data shows Garfield Park faces a 133% increase, and North Lawndale is slated for a 99% jump.
The people who can least afford to pay are given the highest bills. It means get out of town.
And we're back, y'all. Thank you for watching today. Go ahead and hit that like button, my people. You know that it helps us out a ton. And of course, it helps you because it helps us keep bringing you these stories every day. Now, y'all, today we're going to be talking about your boy. You know who he is, the illustrious sub 10% approval rating mayor of Chicago, Brandon Johnson. He's been a little bit MIA lately, y'all. He hasn't been out there giving us something to laugh at too much. But he's still doing his thing behind the scenes, y'all. He's still pushing for a $21 per person head tax, which is sure to be a job killer. Yeah, that's right. It's sure.
Now I'm going to pause it right there. I know. Not to jump around. I'm going to pause it right there. And the reason why I'm going to pause it right there is because something similar happened in California, right? So the Chicago mayor, Brandon Johnson, proposes a $21 per employee corporate head tax. So this would be charged to the business on top of the corporate taxes that they're paying. Okay. It's a head tax. Chicago mayor proposed a $21 employee monthly. So not just one time. This is a month. So, oh my gosh, wow. On large companies to help fill a nearly $1.2 billion shortfall. Business leaders and even a former mayor say the head tax could kill job creation. Yes, because a lot of times with these investments, these businesses get tax breaks. And in turn, they hire the people, right? And then the people, they work and they put the money that they get from working back into the community. It's a good ecosystem, right? But sometimes when businesses get too much of a tax break, the burden lies on the people. Well, now they're trying to burden the companies. So they're not even going to hire the people. This dude. All right. I just wanted to bring that up. Like what was mentioned is not, a lie.
Dampen any type of demand for jobs in Chicago, because would you want to take your business there? Would you want to take your big business there if they say, hey, yeah, for the privilege of working in Chicago, you can give us $21 per person per month. And yeah, we're going to spend this. You know how they're going to spend it, y'all. Not going to spend it the way they told you. And in the meantime, y'all, faith leaders, like people's property taxes have gone up so much in Chicago. They've gone so high that the clergy is coming out, y'all. They're calling on a man upstairs for help, y'all. So while your boy, he said that he was not going to raise the property taxes in his city, somehow they went up anyway. Fancy that. I say that he scammed the people, y'all. Maybe they didn't raise the percentage that they're charging you, but they just raised your assessments to get their money any old way. So while he's saying he's not going to raise property taxes, and in fact, he's saying, hey, we need to do this head tax so that we don't have to raise property taxes. But the property tax is going up anyway. People calling on the man upstairs for help, y'all. So we're going to take a look at both of those things today, y'all. We're going to see how the people of Chicago are lamenting their decision to go with the illustrious sub 10% approval rating Mayor Brandon Johnson, y'all. Let's go ahead and get into it. But before we do, y'all, we are launching our official Patreon. So if you want to be a founding member on our Patreon,
includes a corporate head tax. Calling the tax a job killer, Waguespack sent the mayor's office a letter on November 4th with a list of money-saving efficiencies.
Debt collection is a huge one, and the fact that they have $1 billion per year uncollected debt over the last 2 years is just outrageous.
Waguespack says the city is owed everything from administrative court costs to parking tickets and fees. He also suggested money savings in fleet management, procurement, and health insurance for city employees. The mayor's budget team sent a response to Waguespack over the holiday weekend, telling him the ideas are not practical for the 2026 budget.
So the illustrious sub 10% approval rating mayor said, hey, if you don't like my plan, come up with your own plan. So that's exactly what the opposition did. And then he said, oh, yeah, your plan won't work. You see how that works, y'all? So he's the guy who has not been able to successfully manage Chicago's budget. And now he's telling people who have a different idea, your plan isn't going to work.
On health insurance, we have contract with our labor partners, and those things all have to be negotiated. And these are things that cannot be done in 1 year or one budget cycle. These are things that will happen over time.
The mayor and his city council budget chair, Alderman Jason Irvin, are not backing off on the head tax as a way to pay for public safety initiatives. The tax would charge companies with over 100 employees $21 per head. Irvin says if alders don't vote for the head tax, the options are property tax hikes or service cuts.
So here's the scam, y'all. They're saying they don't want to raise property taxes. Again, they're talking about we won't raise the percentage that we're charging you. But at the same time, the assessor's office is just boosting up the assessment. So they're getting their money anyway. You see how that scam works? Hey, we're not going to charge you more for taxes. The person doesn't care if it's the percentage or if it's the assessment. If it's money coming out of their pocket, if it's going up 100%, and we're going to take a look at that here shortly, y'all. We're going to take a look at the fact that these property taxes are so out of control that the clergy's getting involved, right? Do you care if it's a higher percentage or a higher assessment if the end result is that Mo Munagi is coming out of your pocket?
No one is signing up for service cuts. We continue to ask people, do you want that pothole filled in 10 days or 30 days?
Waguespack and others deny their alternative ideas will result in service cuts. They're putting together some revenue options that the alderman says does not include a property tax hike.
We have a slew of those revenue ideas that we're finalizing, and we'll prepare those for presentation probably late tomorrow or into Wednesday.
One idea is a delivery tax, but the mayor's office rejected the idea because his budget team says it needs state approval. Waguespack disagrees. City council has until the end of the year to pass a balanced budget.
So you see how this works, y'all? They have to charge you more to give you the same services that you receive now. So you would think that the taxes would automatically go up as income goes up, as property values naturally increase. Taxes will increase with that inflation, right? As income goes up, as property values increase, you would expect the tax revenue to increase with inflation, right? So if you're going to give me a new tax, if you're going to charge me something new, then you should be providing a new service. Do you agree with that? Like, if you're going to charge a new tax, I want something more. I don't want a whole nother tax on top of what I already pay just to keep what I already got. Like, what's going on? Somebody explain that to me. And again, as I said earlier, we don't want to raise property taxes. That's a scam, because they just raise your assessments.
Sticker shock continues here in Cook County. Homeowners from the south and southwest sides, all the way to the west side, say that their property tax bills have skyrocketed. Long lines formed outside the Cook County Assessor's office today as people looked for some answers. Our Marissa Perlman has more on the time crunch, as those homeowners say they simply don't have the cash.
I don't know what I'll do.
Gerald Sukol says he's lived in Garfield Ridge his entire life. He was one of many waiting in line at the county building, facing tax bills far beyond anything he expected.
Me and my wife bought this property from my grandfather, who my great-grandfather built the home in 1916.
This year, that legacy comes with a staggering cost.
My tax bill had doubled. It went from $9,600 to $19,100.
$9,600. Now that's already egregious. Like, I complain about our tax bill here in Georgia. Almost 10 grand in taxes. This is why people are losing their homes. And it's like, what in the world? And it's going to be double that? What is going on in Chicago? And your city's a mess. It's a mess. You got crime everywhere. Where is the money going? Where is the money going? There is no way that house, and this is my opinion, once a house is paid off, there should be a cap on the property tax that could be charged on that home. And it should be $500 a year. I don't care what else is going on. If there's no mortgage, and in this case, the gentleman, he bought the property from his father, who he said his grandfather had built, the house is free and clear. He should be paying no more than $500 at the very mint, or okay, we'll say $1,000 a year. That's it. But that's it. I'm sure he doesn't have any school-age children. Where's the money going? Where's the money going? It's crazy. And Uncle Coolwater says, so if Trump won't give him money to take care of the illegals, right? He's going to take the money from Chicago workers and business sector to take care of illegals. You can't make this stuff up. Absolutely. And no one's tying it back to that. And this is this is where the DOJ and the Attorney General of Illinois, you need to investigate all of this. That budget is egregious and it needs to be investigated, because to put that type of burden on the people of Chicago it's horrible. It's harmful. It really is.
Adding to the frustration, these bills arrived months late. County officials say the delay stems from a years-long technology upgrade. That means homeowners got far less time to plan, even as their bills hit record highs. And with another payment due in April, the pressure is mounting.
I got to come up with this money now and then the same amount in March.
County officials say this kind of shock isn't unique to one neighborhood.
People are so distraught about this, y'all, that they're going to the clergy, as I've been hinting, y'all. I mean, what more can we say, people?
But South and West Side clergy came together to say their neighborhoods have been disproportionately hit hard. The assessor's office data shows Garfield Park faces a 133% increase, and North Lawndale is slated for a 99% jump.
The people who can least afford to pay are given the highest bills. It means get out of town.
And the reasons go beyond rising residential values.
It's a zero-sum game. When one group pays less, everyone else picks up the tab.
The assessor's office says one big factor, as commercial properties downtown lost value, the tax burden shifted onto homeowners. The Board of Review reduced commercial assessments by big margins, but residential assessments stayed intact.
After record-setting increases, the Cook County Board of Review says it has reopened its 2025 appeals window, giving taxpayers another opportunity to fight steep assessments. The board also says that it goes with the market, and if taxpayers feel their assessment is unfair, they should be sure to appeal. In the Loop, I'm Marissa Perlman, CBS News, Chicago.
So this budget has to pass this year, y'all. This budget has to pass within the month of December. Last year, it was a raucous situation trying to get the budget passed, and it's shaping up to be the same this year. Again, charge you more to give you the same that you already have, or charge you more not to expand your services, but so that you don't lose the services that you already enjoy. Not charging you more because of inflation.
But not to interrupt him, but just as they were saying, they're charging the residents, the people that have houses, more because the commercial buildings are losing value. Why is that the responsibility of those who own houses? But again, still not talking about the illegal population that they have there, that they are supporting. They are harboring people that are living there illegally. They call them residents. They don't, because they're not citizens. And these people are not asylum seekers. They are not refugees. They literally came here illegally. And they are still supporting that group of people. Those people are on welfare. Where does the money? Again, you're fleecing Americans to support something that they don't even want to support. Just saying.
But like a whole new tax or a set of whole new taxes because we want the city to be safe. Hold up. So, what? So y'all, let me know what you think, y'all. I think the illustrious sub 10% approval rating mayor of Chicago is in for a tough time. It's going to be a crazy fight. But at the end of the day, he probably has the upper hand because he has to pass a budget. They all have to pass a budget. Let me know what y'all think. Drop a comment down below, y'all. But before you do, please stop. Hit the share button.
Yeah. I mean, what's going on in Illinois is literally criminal. It really, really is. But it's a part of a larger plan, right? Like I told you guys months ago, you've got replacement migration that's going on. But here's my thing. If no one's working, right, to pay taxes or to put money into, let's just call it the kitty, how are these people supposed to survive? I mean, you can lose businesses. And if the businesses leave and people can't afford to live there, they're going to leave next. So what is your end game? Because you cannot just live off of the federal government. It's interesting because evil really doesn't think to the next step, right? They're not forecasters. I'm just saying they plan horribly. So is your end game just to have everybody on UBI? Where does the universal basic income come from if no one's working? At a certain point, somebody has to work to pay the taxes, so there's something there to have. If no one's working, where is this endless supply of money supposed to come from? Huh? Where there's like less than 1% of the people at the top, collecting the wealth from everybody else. Like it sounds stupid. I know it sounds stupid, but this is what they're doing. Can anybody else see this? You're literally going to charge companies $21 a head per month. All right. Now let me go back to it so y'all can see the lunacy that this mayor wants to do. It says it's a head tax, charges businesses a fixed fee for each employee under Johnson's proposed budget. This would cost businesses with over 100 Chicago-based employees $21 per month. So if you have 101 employees, because that would be right over 100, you would be paying $21 per month for each person per month just to stay in business. What? Businesses droves would leave because it's not sustainable. It isn't sustainable. $21 doesn't sound like a lot if it was only a one-time fee, but this is monthly. So what about the corporations that have 1,000 employees or 10,000 employees? And this is crazy. And Uncle Coolwater says, once the house is paid off, there should never ever be taxes paid on it. It's your property, your house, done deal. Right. And the only reason I was saying, maybe 500 to 1,000 is because that would pay for, like your firemen, your police officers, right? Like the municipalities, your water, trash, sewer, whatever. That's what I'm talking about. That's what that $500 to $1,000 would cover, quote unquote, property taxes. And it shouldn't even be a property tax. It should just be like a municipal tax. So they can't mess with your property, if that makes sense, Uncle Coolwater. Okay. But what they're doing right now is egregious and it's harmful. It is literally economic warfare going on in Chicago. And to me, this is economic warfare with businesses. Why in the world would you do this? This is a job killer. This is not anybody running to Chicago like, yeah, I want to have a business there so I can pay $21 per head. over 100 employees. Woo. Like, what? Are you serious right now? So while his proposal estimates this new tax on job creation would generate about 100 million in revenue next year and potentially more over time as the fee increases with inflation. So it's not going to just stay at $21. It's going to go up. Okay. Business leaders and city officials have long warned it's a job killer. It is. Like, what is wrong with you? Like, this dude is so much of a socialist that he is literally ready to burn the house down. Literally gonna just light it on fire, kerosene match, just what? Crazy. So taxes are imposed on Americans to ensure that when it comes to ownership of certain things, that you are never really truly own anything, right? Because if you don't pay the taxes on certain things, they will confiscate whatever that thing is. Corruption at its best. Absolutely. Now, I want to say Florida has floated it around. I'm not sure if it's going to be floated in Georgia, but Florida was floating around not having a property tax. Of course, me and my husband were talking about it. And I said, well, if there's not a property tax, they're going to get their money some other way. Now, we already know they don't have state taxes in Florida. So I'm like, well, what other way could they make their money? Well, they could make their money, with different goods and services, depending on what those goods and services would be. That's where you would see your tax increase to level it out. But it would be a beautiful thing to never have property tax and to be able to hand that down to your children. Like I said, I would rather see and I'll call it this way, I'll call it a city tax, right? That's not attached to your property, but a city tax. So if your house is paid off, you're still paying like your water, your sewer, your municipalities, like your firemen, police officers. That makes sense to me. If your house is paid off and you no longer have a mortgage, you should no longer have to pay property taxes because at that point you own the house and the land, and that's it. That's it. Property taxes, in my opinion, are illegal. Period. Even if you are paying a mortgage because you're buying the land and the house. Okay. And there should be a city tax, but not a property tax. And that city tax should have a cap on it, and it should never go over a certain amount. And got assessors running around where your house is worth this, so your property tax has got to go up to that. It's so disgusting. And at this point in time in our country, especially when Americans need the break on their home, yeah, I think there needs to be a call to action on it. And governors really need to start figuring it out where else they can have their budgets, right? First of all, you need to stop the fraud in your states. And to me, depending on the state, I think California and Texas would be a little bit difficult because they're big. But the smaller states, like I live here in Georgia, Florida, Tennessee, like these states, you should be able to find fraud and shut it down and save the taxpayers their money. Get all of these people that are here illegally out of here. And you would have to do it gradually because I was actually listening to a space and it made sense. Get them out of here gradually and replace them with American workers. And these businesses, you're going to start being penalized for having people work for you that are illegal. You're going to stop doing that. You're going to stop paying people under the table, and you're going to stop paying people that are here illegally, or you're going to be fined, period. And that money that those businesses are fined, that's going to go back into those state budgets. Property taxes, eliminate them. And they should be eliminated. They should not be a moneymaker for any municipality. You are already taxing people in other ways, but there should never be a tax attached to somebody's property so that you can tax them out of their home. Because you have, people that are in their 70s and their 80s, and they're looking at losing their homes because they're on a fixed budget and they can no longer afford to live in their house. What have you done? You're disgusting people. Property taxes need to be outlawed in the United States, as well as income taxes as well. I know I'm going on a rant about the money, but I'm just saying they keep fleecing the American people out of just living a prosperous life. If we are the prosperous nation that we claim to be, then we need to get everybody off of the soil that keeps defrauding us. Okay. And we also need to look at the fraud that goes on in Washington too. They're not absolved. Because I know there's a whole bunch of criminals in Washington, scratching each other's back and doing backroom deals and all this other nonsense. That's how these other people are able to get away with it. The people in Minnesota just didn't get away with it because they're smart. They got away with it because somebody told them what to do. And somebody got paid on the back end to allow it to happen. Now, we're going to find out allegedly if Walsh was complicit in what he knew and when he knew it. But come on now. These things don't happen like that. Not without a backdoor deal. Not without a backdoor deal. And see, we don't know the gun that's being held to the people, heads of Minnesota that are in charge right now by terrorists overseas, allegedly. Because I guarantee you that's what's happening. I guarantee you. But I'll say allegedly. But that's just me. But thank you guys so much for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News for our Mighty Men Thursday. It was open mic. I'm so sorry. I forgot to even say, hey, it's open mic. Join me. Come up on stage and talk to me. So maybe I might have somebody, might invite you guys on stage tomorrow for our Prayer With Fridays. But thank you so much for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News. And remember, stay well, stay focused, and stay unfiltered. We'll see you in the next one.